Good afternoon, good evening, good morning. I think we have people on this call that are in all of those time zones for this month's Marketo Roundup, Marketo User Group Roundup. My name is Michael Tucker. I'm with the Manufacturing Virtual Marketo User Group, and would like to kick off by just doing a little bit of slides here. And before I do that, I want to introduce my gracious co-host on normally I would say the other side of the pond, but it dawns on me we have multiple ponds that we're on the other side of. So, ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Warren Stokes.
Hello. Yes. No. Lots of different areas. Lots of different discussions. I hope. So excited. To talk about all the different mugs going on this month. So.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, well, to begin with, and before we get into all of our content and things that are going on here, let's start off by doing a quick introduction to our panel. And I think it's better to have them introduce themselves and just give us a discussion about the geography that they're in and what they're working on right now and the Marketo user groups that they're running off. So our first one is Amanda Thomas. Amanda, hi, thanks for joining us.
Hey, happy to be here. My first roundup. I'm Amanda Thomas. I co-lead the Houston Marketo User Group. Yeah, I'm in Houston, obviously, and attended a few of the mugs. In June, we actually had a break ourselves, but we're resuming next month with a champion presentation on testing webinars. So I do want to plug that real fast. Definitely should register for the Houston MUG. Chiara Riga is going to present on testing and tests that you can run for webinar registration. So that's it. Nice to be here.
Very cool. Very cool to have you. Thank you so much. And then our next panelist from the other side of the pond in New Zealand, Josh Pickles. Josh, thanks for joining us.
Kia ora, guys. Yeah, I'm Josh. I co-lead the Auckland user group down here in New Zealand. We've actually taken a little bit of break over the sort of the pandemic and things like this, but one of the benefits has meant that I've been able to join in on a couple of the international mugs, which has been really awesome.
Yeah, we're really happy to have you as well too, and I think it's interesting being in the going to some of the Asia Pacific mugs about all the different perspectives that you all are bringing to the table. Very interesting to see. And on that note, want to introduce Veronica Holmes, our third panelist from the wonderful country of Australia. And Veronica, welcome to the Roundup this month. Thanks for making the trip.
I know, first time. And I would like to say I literally was in bed like 15 minutes ago. So I'm just kicking the brain off. But it is 7 a.m. here in not so sunny Melbourne. So I helped to run both the Sydney and the Melbourne mugs, and I'm sort of a regional advisor across the entire region when we re-kicked off our mugs as of last year. And yeah, because of the whole COVID thing, we have also sort of taken a bit of a break over the last couple of months, but we are back on deck this month, although I can't tell you what the topic is yet because we're still arguing about it. Debating and sharing ideas about what would be the best thing to do. I think argue is a strong term.
Well, definitely appreciate you making the time to come out here so early in the morning your time. And this is truly a global session today. If everybody goes around the time zones, you're at, I think, 7:30 in the morning your time, right, Veronica?
Yeah, just 7:10. Yeah.
And Warren is in England. Warren, what time is it over there? Was it midnight?
No, 10 p.m.
10
so
p.m.
Nice and early for me this time.
Okay. All right. Great. And then, kind of going around the globe, I'm in Charlotte, North Carolina in the United States. And right now, I think it's just going a little past 5 o'clock. Amanda is the next time zone over. Amanda, what time do you have over there?
4:12.
4:12, and
Yeah.
then Josh, you're a little over as well too. So we're all over the place, aren't we?
Yep, coming up 9:15 in the morning here.
Very cool. Very cool. Okay. Well, let me dive in here, and then obviously we want to bounce this around a little bit. So it's not just about me really just talking this whole time, but really to kind of give just some quick current events of things that are coming up here to mention. So we have a book club that's coming up, as well as the Marketo user groups. So we've just kind of set that up with all the MUG leaders to be able to kind of talk about different written content that's out. And On the Edge we'll be covering on July the 24th. So feel free to sign into that. It's not just about Marketo content. It's about professional growth and development. The Marketo Experience Maker Awards. Who was it? I wasn't at that one. Somebody's better than I am to talk about that. Who was there?
I attended. Yeah, so they just streamed it live from LinkedIn. They had Jennifer Hudson like stream in a performance. That was pretty cool.
I missed that.
Josh, your MUG counterpart was nominated, right?
She was indeed, yeah.
Yeah. So it was
very
great.
excited about that.
Yeah. Yeah, it was great. I think it was a good time. You definitely saw a lot of big brands, of course. It's now more Adobe related than just Marketo's little pool. So yeah, exactly. So it was pretty cool. And you could see that everyone had their, little champagne glasses and live reactions from all of the awards. So it was a pretty cool thing to stream.
And what were the awards about? So these are not the Revy Awards. These are different than the Revy Awards, or is it kind of like an Adobe version of the Revies?
Yeah, I would say Adobe version of the Revy. So it Experience Maker, it's still like related to I guess like not creative or anything, right? It's like marketing operations ish, like related. But it also goes up higher into like leadership. So you had some like VPs on there and stuff that were nominated for things, and then it was more like, what are you doing internally? Like what numbers do you have? So ambassador, I think was the one that was most Marketo related. And that was just like how you're championing the people that you're working with to use MarTech and the Adobe stack as a whole, but kind of more Marketo engage out of that stack. So, yeah, there's just different awards. I think the more tech you have from Adobe, the more likely you were to get nominated.
It's interesting. So the Ambassador Award came up, and we had one of our own that actually won this, and so fake drum roll, please. But our winner here from the Marketo community for this year was Chelsea Kiko, who is just a force. Yeah, right. How many people have gotten help from Chelsea, and God bless you, Chelsea. We love you so much. You're just the best, and have been just a pillar of our community. So thank you for that. And then
shout out to Jennifer and Grace who were amazing there as well.
Yeah, tell me about that. Okay, how do you get nominated for one of these awards? Are you writing in, or what is that about then? How does that work?
You can be nominated by someone, or you can nominate yourself. Okay. And there were a whole bunch of different categories that you could nominate yourself for. But as Amanda said, the ambassador one tended to that was very Marketo heavy this year. But okay. I think very much because of the program. I mean, there's nowhere else in Marketo, in Adobe. There's nowhere else in Adobe that has the strength of the sort of customer marketing program, the ambassador program that Marketo does. But now that Kevin owns all of it, that'll change.
Very cool. Okay, cool. Let's dive forward then into all the other content that we have. So we're at 15 minutes in. We have 45 left to go, and these are all the mugs that we have to cover in that period of time. So that is that's part of the point of this, right? Is if you look at the calendar of everything that's covered here. Whoops, wrong slide. But anyway,
I'm getting exhausted looking at that.
Yeah, there's 23 user group meetings that we see on the calendar times 30 or 60 to 90 minutes. There's a couple of 30 minutes in there, and there's, I think, at least one 3-hour open working session that Seattle does. You wind up with a lot of hours to cover. So thank you all for helping to kind of distill this down. And I think what I have here now is I think what we should do is let me hand it over to my co-host here, Warren, to really kind of take away the breakdown, and you've got notes on all of these different sessions. So can you run us through and kind of MC the different discussions of all these different mugs around the world?
Yeah, totally. So starting from the top and on, I think it's the Wednesday. So the first one was our summary, which was from last month, but then the Wednesday was the Chicago mug, and they've continually had their spring cleaning session. So that's been really interesting. They've looked at various different areas in terms of database, data normalization, which I presented at. I actually just made a cocktail for an hour, which, if you want to watch someone do that, I did that. The recordings are all available for the spring cleaning one. There's like Amy Goldfine as well. Brooke Bartos is presenting next week, I believe. So that's really the focus there on those Chicago mug spring cleaning ones on a weekly basis, is really just that cleaning up your Marketo instance. There's some great tips there, great speakers, like people like Andy Karen as well. So that's definitely a series
when you say clean it up, like you're talking, just give us a couple of brief points. Like, you mean data hygiene, or you mean like actually cleaning up templates?
Yeah, so it went from data hygiene to cleaning up some operational campaigns to data normalization. So the focus for the hour session was on a particular part of the cleanup. So it was really interesting to get that focus, and I obviously had to shovel into that as well. And I had to get explained to me what PineSolve was, because that was the title of it, and we don't actually have it in the UK. So that was kind of interesting to kind of present on that. No, that was definitely a good one. We also had on the 15th of June, which was the, what ones I missed? So we also had, I forget, our European inaugural mug that me and Chloe Pott did as well. So we were excited about that, and a few of you guys joined us. I know, Michael, you were there.
Yeah.
So that we put together, we had our guest speaker, and we did an alignment on the IT and marketing side of it, which we thought was a hot topic. And then our next one then is in August, where we're doing bring a new Marketo user. So we want to encourage newer users to that. And we're going to do some stuff on marketing certified. So there's a small plug for that, but we had our initial inaugural mug.
The European mug is separate from the London mug, right?
Yeah, so we want to make sure that we don't conflict with those guys or cannibalize anything there. So we actively want to promote the attendance to those groups as well, because ours will always be virtual. Yeah. And theirs will always be localized. It's just that Chloe had this vision that she basically wanted to create a forum which was accessible to anyone in Europe to go and ask questions. And we want to kind of make sure that there's some newer user groups there. So that was really our focus. And it was nice to have our first one. I know Chloe was buzzing at the end of it, like messaging me like, "Oh my God, we did our first one." So
Are they fun?
Really nice. Yeah. Work with her on that. But, that was great.
So I think on this too, it's kind of neat to see you have sort of a symbiotic relationship, kind of like what we're doing in North America with the virtual mugs and the regional mugs. And yeah. Amanda and Veronica are both, ambassadors or former ambassadors inside of the mug community. And so, you both have kind of been on the inside in terms of those relationships between the two. I mean, how do you describe that think about it from a content perspective? So, not the organization side, but if you're a Marketo practitioner, what sort of knowledge are you trying to get out of a virtual mug, out of the regional mugs? You know what I mean? Like, do you attend both? Do you attend one or the other? Do they complement each other? How does that work as you're learning Marketo?
So we're getting there with the content, I would say. So because obviously it's early stages, what we want to do is we want to have it complement and also make it accessible for people that can't get to their local mugs as well. Mm-hmm. So the content will always try and be slightly different. We also want to cater it for newer users as well that don't necessarily want to commit to travel. to just being able to go there and ask questions and just have a safe space to learn. So we realized our audience are people that are not necessarily able to commit to either travel times, and they can be doing other things as well. So we just wanted, that was really our focus and behind it. But equally, we actively reach out to those local user groups to see what their timings are and what content they're doing as well, so we can complement that. So yeah.
For us, it's our opportunity to really inject champion voices and stuff from outside of our region, because we have a much smaller community, we have a much smaller group of people, and we love our people who show up month after month to all local user groups. But all of our mugs are centered, so we've got two in New Zealand, but you know, there's a whole rest of the country that can't travel to get to there. We have a massive region in Australia. All of our mugs are focused down the eastern seaboard of Australia. The entire west and central is ignored. Tasmania is ignored. We also reach up into Hong Kong, Singapore, where there's a strong Marketo user base up through Southeast Asia. So but it gives us an opportunity to actually go out to the international community and go, who would our Asia Pacific audience most want to hear from? So, and to bring those voices into our community, which is fantastic.
So pivoting back then to Warren, I'm sorry to take you off track with my question there, but so compare what you did. So you and Chloe talked about the relationship between I think sales and marketing in different parts of the org chart. She had her boss that was there that was talking about, you know, some of the, what did London produce this month? What was their topic session on?
So they invited Pierce from NAC and Revenue Pulse. So for the guys that don't know him, he's quite a character in the community. He progressed through a consultant to a champion to then run his own agency to now another business, which is NAC, which is their email and landing page creation platform that really helps kind of smooth that operational process. So he was already quite inspirational. He was worried as well. He actually asked me to have a look at his slides because he was worried that he was a bit too salesy. But in natural Pierce style, he just smashed it when he went to present it. Lots of different questions as well. And one of the interesting ones about the London mug is that they had this email maturity model, which actually talks about where your organization is in terms of producing emails and the programs, etc., and kind of aligned it to the speed and development and how you get things out. So that was kind of interesting to hear his perspective on that, of obviously being a consultant. And then they had Citrix as well, which talks further about their email maturity model. So that was a great mug. In terms of speakers, that was one of my favorites in terms of speakers, because sometimes there's always that worry that they could get a bit salesy when you invite guest speakers, particularly if they're from companies. But that was a great one. I think the London mug usually has a reasonable turnout as well, because we have quite a big big-ish community, but then it's all in context, right? The San Francisco one is normally like 80 or so people.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, lots of good content that's coming in there. So that's pretty good. Any other ones that stood out in EMEA, or should we skip to North America? And kind of, I'm thinking we just work time zone wise, right, from right to left, or
yeah, I mean, not strictly EMEA, but I do want to call out the Indian virtual mug as well, which was on the 24th of June. And that had AJ and Amit in there, and it actually was just literally a fireside chat. And I've never really heard AJ speak, but for those of you who don't know, I think he got Champion of the Year as well. So he's he's fantastic, and he was really inspiring.
Incredibly articulate, yeah.
Yeah, he speaks really, really well, and he's really kind as well. Like, he just comes across as really kind, which is really nice. When lots of people brought their questions, they were all just chatting amongst them, and they're like, one of the questions that I asked, for example, in that was just their background, because they came from more database backgrounds, whereas I come from a marketing background. And it's really interesting to hear their perspective on that. And they were asking lots of Marketo certified and questions and how to become that and what that actually means for their career. So that was a really inspiring one. from those guys, having not attended that one before.
Yeah, I mean, India. I've attended a few of these now, and they swing for the fences really wildly in terms of, like, you'll have one that's very technically focused and will deep dive into a very technical feature, and then you'll have one like this one, which was more sort of personal development and career focused. But it's cool because they were continuing on something we've seen across the community quite strongly in the last couple of months, which is a real focus on how do I build my career, how do I get certified, how do I learn better, what resources do you use to get up? And somebody asked, how do you become a champion? And there was some sort of differing answers on that. So, but everyone pretty much agreed that it's offering sort of more of yourself and your knowledge out to the community and building your profile like that. But I'm like, getting to know some Marketo people internally probably doesn't hurt.
Dude, that's awesome. I've never heard the man speak, honestly. We've connected a couple of times and just exchanged notes online, but I really wish I could go. I'd love to see recordings if they do that. Did they record their session for us to view, or is that more of like an?
It did. It just dropped yesterday. So
oh, did it?
You can pick up on that one now.
Okay, we're gonna add that into the YouTube channel then if we can. Okay, cool. Really good ones. So, should we shift to North America, or do you want to go the other direction and talk APAC, Warren? What do you think?
Oh God, we didn't even have one this quarter, I don't think. So I think skip over the APAC region for this quarter. We'd have to reach way back into March to actually talk about anything.
Okay. Well, I must say, like, one of the things that I want to say, I went to a webinar that your firm had put on, Veronica, and was impressed by that. And although that's not a Marketo user group, so I don't want to go too deep into that. There's a lot of knowledge that you guys have over there that I don't think we go to it as much because of the time zone difference, but I am glad that I stayed up to attend the session. And I think, from what I'm hearing about India, it kind of makes me want to kind of rejig my calendar now a little bit more to maybe have, a late evening day or something like that to kind of work it out. I don't know. Amanda, do you do these things? Do you ever stay up late to kind of check the international content?
Oh my God.
Not really.
I feel like I can't count the number of times I've been up at like 2 or 3 in the morning, like just to sort of, and you're just kind of like, okay, was this really worth it?
Yeah.
Am I absorbing anything?
Okay, where are we at here? We're at 1/2 so let's go North America.
Oh, so North America. Now, so I'm thinking about the New York one, though. I don't know if you're going to have to help me with the geography, right? Because I don't know anything about America. So if I call out one that is definitely not, and probably just America, then you're going to have to correct me. But the New York one with Sanford, I attended that one as well. And again, I know you can find him on YouTube because he's basically like Sia, right? You can't actually find him anywhere.
So true.
There's one YouTube video of him. I don't know if anyone else has seen or seen anything, but
I have an actual sighting.
Yeah. But he's great. So I bought someone who I help as well on their first user group, and he's quite technical. He comes from a web background, and Sanford just straight away came out with the question as you'd expect. But I think if you have those technical questions, I think they have that chat quite regularly. Michael, I think you've been to that one before.
Yeah, I've been going almost every week, and I love them. They're only 30 minutes. You just drop in, and it's him and Inga Romanoff. And every time, the last time I was up there, I actually sat down and had coffee with her, and it was there for a conference, and we just got a chance to kind of just kind of compare notes for about half an hour, maybe or so, before we both had to run off to different things. They're wonderful. They're very, it's very short. So there's only 1 or 2 topics that they can get in, but they have open office hours. You can ask them anything. So Sanford this month covered There was questions, there was some CSS formatting questions that people had around the style sheets that were inherited to a form from a landing page, which I think in turn was also, they had a link rel tag at the top of their landing page text, I think, that was bringing in some CSS that wasn't formatting properly. So we went through one session to debug that. Went through another session. Actually, Sanford helped me to debug my, well, not debug, but to give me some insight, I guess, on the weather personalization presentation I did for Atlanta. I just kind of drop a hint in there, and had some really interesting tips on how to be able to parse out the JSON response you get from a webhook. He had this great idea where he said, well, why don't you just save the entire response to the on the JSON into a text area field in Marketo, and then that way you can reference it with velocity tokens afterwards. You don't have to keep making webhook calls, and it reduces the amount of possibility of errors if there's a problem with whatever platform that you're sending the webhook out to, which
Yeah,
I thought was a good idea.
That's a tip I got from Jet Castelline a little while back too. Yeah, it's been that's a really good one.
I hadn't thought about that, but yeah, so that's the kind of perspective that Sanford gives, actually, and so he covers some interesting topics. I was mentioning, I think in my thing, so I love to talk to Sanford about questions that are around JavaScript, but I also know how popular he is. So I'm trying now to kind of put a depth chart into who I ask like really these questions to, so I'm not bugging the same guy all the time. So my depth chart right now is Sanford on everything JavaScript related. Veronica, I actually, value a lot of your input on, I want to call it kind of workflow related issues, just issues if I don't know exactly where the answer is. And then I always kind of gravitate to Courtney Grimes whenever I have like development questions, like server side development questions. And I feel like between the three of you, I seem to always kind of get some of those deeper technical answers that I'm missing.
My next life, I want to come back as Courtney's brain. Hi, Courtney, if you're out there. You already know I love you.
She's a genius.
Yeah.
Anyway, I digress. So yeah, New York was good.
Yeah, and I just want to ask as well, Eva, I know you said you'd been using Marketo for a year. So when you come across the more technical elements, is that something you work with a web team for, or are you experimenting with scripting now, or where does that come in when you hear more of the technical stuff?
Yeah, so it totally depends on what it is, but I usually look at the Marketo documentation first and see if I can solve the issue by myself. I've also started doing some of the self-paced Marketo training courses that are available, the core concepts ones,
Nice.
and I find those really helpful too. But we don't have a Marketo expert in the company, so sometimes it's a little challenging. So at my previous company, we did. So it's a lot of trial and error and trying to find the answer myself. That's why I signed up for this one too, just to see, what can I get out of this and what to expect, because there's just so much I still need to learn.
Yeah, I mean, it's really just that you could go anywhere, right, as well. I think there was the Indianapolis, got it there, mug that you presented at, Mr. Tucker, as well. I believe you presented on that one, right? Oh, audio's gone.
That was my very first presentation outside of my own mug, actually.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Taylor Enfinger was asked me to present in Atlanta just before that, and then the slot had opened up, and it dawned on me, I'm not presenting at enough of these things. I'm too busy emceeing them and kind of putting stuff together, and I don't actually, it dawned on me, I don't think anybody knows that I actually know anything about this platform right now. So I thought I'd throw this together, and actually it was a project that I've been working on for a couple of years now. One of my biggest clients had 8 workspaces and several different offshoots of brands for each workspace as well. So a lot of interesting kind of platform operations considerations that come out of that too. So the whole presentation on that was how do you configure Marketo to be able to manage multiple workspaces and multiple users within each of those. So we look at the organization chart and then kind of divide up the instance accordingly, so to make sure that the right people get the right resources, and then all of the branded materials that you build in Design Studio match all of the identity requirements for each of those brands.
Cool. There was also on the same day as well, I didn't get a chance to attend this one, the Salt Lake City MUG, and that was it was creating the on-brand emails, which is focused on, I think, some of the newer users on creating on the email template side. Did anyone else get a chance to see that or have an opinion on that one, or no?
I saw the beginning of it, I think. If I remember the correct one, I might be confused with the month prior to that, but he had Pierce on from NAC as well. And then correct me if I'm wrong at this one, but I think he had Pierce on from NAC, and then they're doing mastermind sessions there where they have like open discussion. So I can't remember if was this one, but they had a discussion on how to configure the Marketo Sales Insights. And somebody was having a problem with some of the custom fields that they were building in for Sales Insights and configuring the stars and the flames part of Marketo Sales Insights, which I think that's kind of a common challenge that people have when they're setting that up. Is that right, Veronica? And I don't know, has anybody else done that? Run into that problem?
Oh yeah. It's pretty common. If you're going to use that feature extensively, it takes a little bit of work to get that right.
Yeah.
But look, on the other hand, as with a lot of stuff to do with the sync, there's not a heck of a lot you can configure. You're pretty much stuck with what's there out of the box. You're just pushing it as far as you can push it.
Yeah.
I got a question though. Across all of these sort of North American mugs, are you finding it quite easy? Is there lots of debate and discussion and people asking questions, stuff like that? Like, are you finding it easy to sort of get people talking in these online environments? Just curious as to sort of the people who've done it well.
Yeah. I want to pivot that actually, because that question sort of opens up another discussion that we had that I think there was an internal Marketo User Group leader discussion that actually covered that. That was like Sydney Mulligan and Jackie Potts from the North American Virtual MUG was sort of, I think they kind of, if I want to describe it, and Amanda or anybody else that was there help me with this, but they sort of had a session that just kind of talked about some of their best practices, which I think was similar to kind of the lessons learned session that I did a couple months ago too, about how to run a mug. And I think what happens is you put up some of these topics, and then I ask questions to people all the time. If it's quiet, then I'm going to start picking on people right away, and that's why I keep saying Amanda and Josh and Veronica, and basically it kind of prompts you to kind of do these things, and that's why I'm lucky to have like Warren as my co-host, so that I stop talking and hand it over to him. Or am I pointing in the right direction?
Yeah. Well, I'll interrupt you, and you will ask me then a more technical question that goes over my head. That's normally how it goes.
Yeah.
It was a good thing to sort of that internal sort of regroup on it all was really interesting from that perspective, especially around. I mean, one of the challenges that we've always had down here is trying to figure out not just what it is that we're going to be talking about in terms of what the topic of the actual user group is going to be, but who are we actually going to get in to speak on these things. It was really quite interesting to sort of hear that a lot of the times for a lot of these user groups, it's only every second or third time that they really get in a guest speaker to kind of talk at these things. That a lot of them there's a particular topic, it might be, say, engagement programs, and it's a little bit more of just a general conversation, an opportunity for people to sort of come in and ask questions about, how am I, why isn't this not working? How do I actually sort of run this more efficiently? Which I thought was a definite, I guess, a bit of a different way to sort of try forcing that, well, not forcing, but bringing that engagement to life into these things a bit more.
Yeah. Hey, listen, I'm looking at the calendar or the time here. I realize we got 20 minutes left. We have a whole lot of Marketo user groups to get done. Do you think Warren, kind of coming back to our previous conversation, right? And the start of this is we want to try and make this sort of an index, or I think you called it a digest, which I like that as a word, to be able to make it easy for people like Eva to kind of go, hey, I want to learn about this month. And if you watch this program for 1 hour, we will give you a synopsis of all the different Marketo user groups that they covered, basically. So let's keep going and kind of pivot. What's a good next one? So we did Salt Lake City, we did Indianapolis, talked about Chicago a little bit.
I can touch on Raleigh.
Yeah, touch base on Raleigh.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So Michael and I actually overlapped on a couple of user groups this past month. But yeah, so I attended Raleigh along with Michael, and that is hosted by Carolyn Brown and oh my gosh, his name is
Rich
escaping
French.
me. Thank you, Rich. So they went through Salesforce Sync. So how that is actually configured natively, all of the capabilities around it. They've had some struggles with Salesforce Sync and got Marketo support involved. They also work with an agency and got them involved as well. And he just kind of used, I would say, about 30 minutes of the time just like repeating everything he knew about the sync, which I think was really good for people that are new to Marketo or just like setting this up with the Salesforce sync, is just getting all of the facts down back to back. Like, the less fields, the better. It's going to look through all of this to when every time it syncs, and just gave a lot of like quick facts on that. So that's a great one to attend, I think, if you're looking for or great one to listen in on if you're looking for some of that information around sync.
Yeah. I like that. I like Raleigh because it's an open forum. So Rich will do these presentations on the sync. There's a lot of things that are not documented about sync in a lot of places, and I that's kind of where I look to you, Veronica, and that's kind of where I look to Greg Waugh. Had a bunch of different threads in.
I have a 145 slide PowerPoint presentation that I've collated about the Salesforce sync over the past 7 or 8 years, and it just kind of sits on my hard drive. And someone asks me a question, I'm like, I think I have a slide on that somewhere.
and so, okay, if you're a user, you want to learn about that, and you go, wow, that sounds great. How do they get access to that, Veronica? Do they just kind of contact you, or are you posting that up on Slideshow?
Oh no, getting access to that requires actually hiring me as a consultant. I'm sorry.
Okay, good.
But no, look, I share that knowledge all the time. Like, so if anyone actually does have like a specific sync question and want to seek and search me out, like that's perfectly fine. I live and breathe that particular thing.
Yeah, I think that's common. I mean, I think what are there, 4 of us that are on this panel right now that are kind of consulting in different spaces. I mean, my, shameless plug, right? My Atlanta presentation was on weather personalization, and maybe we can pivot to Josh talking a little bit about that. But, those are all expertise that we gather collectively from the different Marketo instances and the different client challenges that we come across over the years. The community is great because we share some of those, but at the end of the day too, we're also there to be able to support a lot of our clients, and basically being with you and interacting with each of you helps me to sharpen the saw that I use to be able to help, the companies that engage with me. So that's the kind of piece of this where we get into it, aside from being able to help so many different people with their personal Marketo instances.
I think as well, just like I've had help from Veronica on the MOPS Pro, the Etimos run Slack group, where I asked about the program level fields, and Veronica has kind of given me a deck there. So everyone's like helpful. So if you have any questions that maybe come up time to dine where you're not able to attend Marketo user groups, I would look at the Etimos Slack group there. That's always got a hive of activity, and we're all on there, I think, as well. And there's plenty of questions and answers. So if you need quick fire answers, that's the place to go. Otherwise, there's obviously then the Marketo community. And like Eva said, the documentation, they're available, but sometimes you need those quick fire answers. And Veronica's helped me with that. So, yeah.
Yeah. Hey, I want to pivot a little bit on this too, because to talk about Seattle, was anybody else on Seattle? I think it was just me. I don't think I saw anybody else on there. Seattle is interesting. If you have a chance, so Warren, Seattle happens to be in the northwest corner of the United States, just to let you know.
You, yeah. I was wondering, are you going to correct me on my geography?
But anyway, it's
I think you
interesting.
should. I think you should give him a quiz on European cities and where they're located.
Istanbul, Constantinople.
I'd
Um,
still lose. My geography is terrible. But anyway, continue, Michael.
the answer is always 42. Uh, you know, Seattle is interesting because it is kind of the epicenter of a lot of different consulting areas, right? So what I saw on it, they do an open forum. It's 3 hours. You can talk about whatever. The session that I was in was all about nurtures, but it was very detailed and it was very, you know, Nathan is a really gifted kind of presenter, and I think Edward Unthank, who is your boss, Amanda, kind of started this mug off, from what I understand. But they also had Centra Consulting, which is a group that I had worked with previously, and we're going into some very in-depth conversations about, you know, how do you use your nurture programs, what do you use for criteria to be able to move between, you know, one stream to another stream, and you know, how do you change some of the adaptive rules that are in an engagement program, and what do you do in terms of content development for pieces in those engagement programs. And you know, I found it really thrilling. I thought it was very in-depth. There was a lot of discussions, but they were very open to be able to answer your questions as well too. It was a very different format, being so long of a session at 3 hours, but you could kind of come and go. And they actually gave away an Ember mug at the end of it too. So some really, really good prizing that was in there. And Amanda, I've never met the man before, really, except for that one session. Do you all work together a lot? You know, can you give me a little bit of insight on what?
Yeah, so Nathan's my boss now too. Now that Atumas has exploded into being a lot larger than it was just a couple years ago. Yeah, so he is right underneath Edward and is like all of our services now that we're building out like a campaign operations and a development arm. But yeah, he's been consulting for a very long time, and I actually had the opportunity to go to a Seattle MUG before I worked for Atumos, where Nathan was leading it. And yeah, it's so interesting because you do get other consultants there, and you do also get like brand or logo side people as well. And it's always, everyone has very specific questions about things. So you're always learning, picking up on a different use case of kind of the same thing. So yeah, I didn't know it was that long though. That seems like pretty long time to have a mug going, but
It was interesting. I don't know if they do all of them
yeah.
that way. I just kind of sort of muted and kind of was listening in the back. I had to go heads down
Yeah.
on a project, but it was good to have them there to be able to answer them.
And I know they're also somewhat unique because they try to avoid recording as much as possible. So people will ask those very specific questions. So I think it's good that they have kind of like an open forum of like, even bring up your instance and show us because we're not recording. So I think that's something that they try to do to make sure that they can get people to talk. Veronica, like you were asking earlier, like, are people actually engaging? And I think that was,
We've been tossing around that
yeah.
idea of not offering like, or having a piece at the back end of the mug that isn't recorded, like maybe record like any sessions or presentations, but then cutting the recording off and then allowing people to speak. I think, yeah.
Okay, we have, where are we at here? About 10 minutes left. A little under that. Josh, do you want to talk a little bit about Atlanta for a moment? And it's a shameless self-plug, I'm sorry, but I need to pivot that. And then just so I can kind of land.
At least you're throwing to someone else. That's good.
Yeah, right. Yeah, no, this was really good because this was actually the second user group that I'd been to this month that Michael had actually spoken at. So this one was actually a bit more around interestingly, about weather-based personalization within emails. Why I quite like this is I've actually done something quite similar to this before. So, but it was a little bit more sort of like about 6 or 7 years ago and outside of the Marketo platform. So it was, what I kind of found really interesting was just to kind of get a bit more of an insight around how this type of personalization can really be done within the platform, within Marketo itself. You'll have to forgive me, I cannot remember the name of the tool off the top of my head. That's right, yes. But it was really the use cases that you kind of provided in them. I thought were really fantastic, just to kind of be able to kind of create these various types of marketing campaigns that delivered various, or quite varied experiences based on whatever is actually happening outside. It's not something that I see much of, to be perfectly honest, and I kind of want to see more of it. So.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I definitely got thrown off when Jenny asked me, how did you come up with this idea? And it kind of dawned on me. I'm coming up with it because of what's happening with COVID-19 and the shutdown, and the amount of times that I've been asked by different businesses as they're trying to reopen if you could wait outside for a couple of moments while we're trying to deal with the capacity and be able to work through the customers that we have inside of our stores. And I really think, so I want to kind of pivot this to be able to kind of end off our session here, to think, as marketers in these uncertain times, we have certain skills that I know it's a very turbulent time for a lot of people, and we're trying to be able to kind of work through a lot of the stresses that we see happening in our societies and all sorts of places all over the world, except for New Zealand. Congratulations to you guys, by the way, for eradicating the virus on there. That's amazing. If only we were all so lucky. But anyway, we have an obligation, I think, to be able to work with all of these businesses as they're trying to figure out how to reopen in a safe, new normal, to be able to find ways to get our tools. And Marketo is a very, very powerful tool to be able to empower some of these businesses to minimize as much as possible all the disruptions that are happening in society. So I feel at the end of the day, if you're going to do something, it should be there for a purpose. And I think part of that purpose is, the sales leads that we provide historically, put food on the table and bread and butter for so many families of all the different companies that we work for. And now we have this extra responsibility to figure out how to be able to bring back the sizzle and the compelling ways to be able to make purchases and transactions for all of our different clients. Anyway, that's me and my high horse.
Trust you to find meaning in the universe, Michael.
The answer is 42. Let me pivot off here for a moment, because we're at the end of the hour here. We've got 5 minutes left. Warren, did I miss anything here, or is there anything else that you have left in the notes too that we should touch on before we kind of close her out?
Yeah, I think I haven't attended them, but some of these specialist ones, like the higher education and the manufacturing, actually go into specific use cases around that industry. So, I mean, I don't operate in those industries, but I imagine that going into some of the life cycle elements there and particular programs and operations associated with that industry would be worth doing. So that there's a manufacturing one, I believe, and there is also a higher ed one. Those are the two specialist ones. But I guess
there is a non-profit one floating around somewhere. Yeah.
I forgot about that one. Yeah, the manufacturing one is my Marketo User Group. My goodness, I spend all my time going to everybody else's. And actually, I do want to throw a shout out to Diedrich Martens, who is the leader of the Netherlands Marketo User Group, who is a speaker at mine, the manufacturing one. And he did a very good presentation on leveraging feedback throughout the life cycle. So think of all the different places where you have.
Oh, I love that presentation. Yeah, I've seen it done separately. It was very good.
He's a smart guy. He's a really smart guy. And he's got a book coming out that just talks about his 10 years in marketing operations. That it's on manuscript format right now. I think he's just doing the final edits on it to come out. But I'm excited to see it. I'm excited to see anytime you can bring back the old Marketo tricolor logo and kind of dust that thing off. It'll be interesting to see all the different changes that we've had.
T-shirt in my cupboard somewhere with that on it.
Okay, listen, so I want to respect time, and I know that you all have different things. I mean, it's the end of the day where Amanda and I are, but it's really the end of the day where Warren is. But you know, for everybody else, you're getting off on to a good start. If you want to catch some of the sessions that we've been discussing, and you can't make it to the Marketo user groups for what happens, you know, you're welcome to visit the Marketo Virtual User Group YouTube channel. I've put a redirect to it off of my domain name at conversionstore.com/video. Truthfully, just go to YouTube and search Marketo Virtual User Groups, and you'll find it as well too. And so we have recordings. We're putting recordings on from the Europe Virtual Mug, from Salt Lake City. All of the Mug contributors are starting to put their content on here, and we're actively working to share it as well too. And the idea is, I mean, it's not going to be Netflix, you know, with their huge library of video content. But if you saw the note at the beginning of this, we have, you know, roughly 24 hours of content a month, at least, that's getting produced from some very, very talented people otherwise. So, you know, it's as interesting and insightful as PBS with things that you can actually use for your job is kind of the way that I want to put it. And, you know, if you guys have other properties or other places that you could learn Marketo at that you'd like to mention as well too, you know, happy to be able to hear some of those right now too.
I'm looking at that flashing past and going, oh, the San Francisco Mug, that was so fun, with Sarah jumping on and talking to everyone.
Yeah, yeah, that was a good one. You know, lots of cool stuff in here. Okay, and then I guess the end of this really, you know, so thank you on this. I mean, next month, so we're going to do this on the first weekday of every month. When is August the 1st? What day is that?
I can't believe it's August. It's so ridiculous. Anyway.
Tuesday.
It's a Saturday.
Tuesday? Okay. Is it a Saturday or Tuesday?
It's a Saturday. The
It's a
first
Saturday?
Friday.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So
So
probably not a good
Maybe
day.
not.
No. So we'll do it, you know, I think we should do it like Monday the 3rd, August the 3rd, and do a kickoff that afternoon if that works for you, Warren. And so we'll see that on mugs.marketo.com. We'll always keep that time slot available to be able to do the recording, and then this will be recorded and spread out to everybody all over the world to be able to view, to learn about different Marketo user groups that are happening. So thank you all for attending, and we'll be announcing 3 new panelists for next month and keep it rotating, so that not all of us have to you know, spend the 24 hours to kind of watch all the content. But thank you all again for taking some time out of your days to be able to join us.
Thank you, Michael. It was nice meeting
All
you
right,
all.
thank you.
Thanks, guys.
Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Awesome. Kaki day.